For many years now, Russ and Craig have had many wide-ranging conversations with folks from all over the gaming world. This is one of those conversations.
D6G, the Lost Chapter.
Hey, Craig, so have you tried the new, I'm getting one of these pretzel chocolate-covered donuts. Have you seen these things?
Okay, I've got to tell you, I was at the counter and I looked at that and I thought, I love pretzels and I love donuts and I love chocolate and I don't like anything about the concept of having pretzels
oh my God,
and
it's
donuts
good.
in the same mouthful.
No, my brother came over for D&D the other day and he had a half a dozen of those things and they were, hey, wait, is that, Craig, I recognize that guy in the corner from all those crazy videos. Is that Ash?
Oh, that's Ash Barker from Guerrilla Miniatures Games.
Ash, come on over.
I haven't been able to say that.
That was
all night long.
Miniatures Games.
Yeah, Ash thing. The YouTube gamer. That's what I call him.
You become like weirdly Eastern European during that segment.
I'm just going to sit over here and have some hummus.
Have a coffee. Hey, so Ash, can I buy you a pretzel covered chocolate donut and maybe a coffee?
Yeah, for sure, man. Let's do it.
Now, what is your favorite kind of donut? Now, in Canada, so we have run into Canadians at Dunkin Donuts before, and
especially this is the metaphysical Dunkin Donuts that it is the center of the universe,
right? But the thing that most Canadians don't care for is they'd rather go across the street, because I don't know if you can look, but if you look out the window carefully, you can see a Tim Hortons right across the street, and Canadians will tell us that Tim Hortons is better. But all Americans know this is simply an untrue statement. Where do you stand on the whole Tim Hortons Dunkin' Donuts situation?
On the spectrum.
I think the biggest difference between Tim Hortons and Dunkin' Donuts is the Tim Hortons staff are just better trained. You get your coffee and it's cheap and it's fast. Okay. That's why Canadians love Tim Hortons.
That's okay.
It's the same. I've drank a lot of Dunkin' Donuts. Like that. You're getting back from work at like 11 o'clock at night and that's the only thing that's open. Right. And you're like, oh, there's like 4 moldy donuts and whatever the largest size coffee you have.
A ringing endorsement.
There was one time in my life where I was like, and I'm off to my hotel to have the best dinner you can buy at a 7-Eleven.
I've had nights like that.
The best old hot dog monies can buy.
That's right. Special hot dogs and ramen noodles. Got some pot noodles for
yeah, that's good.
Actually, no, I'll be honest. My favorite donuts I've ever had anywhere is in Portland, Oregon at Voodoo Donuts.
Oh, yes. Voodoo Donuts. I've been there.
I've had a maple bacon donut, and it was fantastic.
Voodoo Donuts has those cool coffee mugs with holes through the middle. That's an awesome part.
Can you get any more Canadian than a maple
in Portland?
It's Portland.
Well, maple bacon donut.
It is maple bacon.
I mean, it's right there. I mean, the border's right nearby.
I guess if that whole Pacific Northwest is about as close to living in Canada as you can be in the United States.
Yeah. Unless you're like on the line in Maine, but still we'll allow it. So while we're here enjoying our donuts and our coffee,
right.
Ash, I see the amount of videos you put out, which is crazy, insane, and awesome, and I really appreciate all the stuff you do there. But what is really impressive to me is not only do you put out a crazy number of videos, but it seems to me like every third video is featuring a new army you just painted, right? And then, of course, you're a father, and you're doing all these things. So I thought maybe, because Craig and I get this question all the time on our show all the time too, which is where do you guys find the time to be parents and have jobs and still actually paint? So Ash, how do you find the time? How do you manage your time to do some of this stuff?
Well, there's two things. One thing is I will never, ever make a painting video. Because painting is like the last thing in my hobby that I don't like share with people. It's just for me. And so when my kids go to bed, usually if they're napping, I have like hidden behind the couch an old gray GW carrying case full of paints.
Yep.
And then on the other side of the couch, I have a green cutting mat that comes out on my coffee table. Mm-hmm. And then on the other side of my easy chair, I have an OttLight, like an arm lamp OttLight.
There you go.
And so I just steal like 45 minutes to an hour to paint. And I think it's just like a discipline thing. A lot of people can't paint unless they paint to the end.
Right.
Like they're not okay with like leaving something half done. And I've become really disciplined at like just having like I'm just going to get the blue on this guy done. Yep. Like I got 45 minutes. I'm going to do it. And I think painting is like going to the gym. If you're really committed to doing it, you just find the time to do it. And because I know it's the thing that like defragments my personal hard drive, you know what I mean? Like it's my what's the definition of a hobby? It's a mundane task to occupy the forebrain while the hindbrain sorts through all of its detritus. I put Netflix on, something that like I can just watch without actually looking up like 5 seasons of Law and Order SVU or something like that. It just like plays in the background, where you're like, dun, dun, oh, they're in court. Okay. And then I'll just sit and paint, another leg of something, and I try and get like 1 to 2 models done a day. And I mean, I've been painting for almost 30 years, so I don't worry about painting anymore. Like, I'm very relaxed about my painting. I got my golden demons and my painting trophies. Like, I don't try and paint everything to the best standard I have anymore. I've got like a comfy level of painting that I just kind of get to where I'm happy with it. And it looks good on camera.
I think that's the magic, though, right? Because I wanted to ask about this too, because I'm the same way. So I used to try to like paint to impress, I guess, Yeah. And now I just paint for really me. And there's a quality I want to look nice, but it's really, and because I know, like you, we've been painting so long, I'm confident in any model I pick up that it's going to turn out in a way I like.
Decent,
right?
Yeah.
It's going to be the level I want, and it's really the cathartic act of doing it, and the knowing of the self-satisfaction you get when it's done. And kind of looking at it, like I just finished a Troll War Wagon, and I'm like, wow, I'm really pleased with how this came out. And it's not like, you can look at it, it's not technically amazing or anything, but like, I love this. It looks at the table, it's fun. So
but you're happy with it, yeah. It's that romantic in you. You're like, it looks cool, right. But like you're not going to focus on the little details and worry about it.
Right, and so I get it. So like you, I went through these times where I felt for a while the ultimate way to paint was have a permanently dedicated, erected painting area that I could walk into, slap some paint on something, and then walk away, and I could work in those small... and that worked well until my children started getting older and my wife started reclaiming elements of the house. So I couldn't have like a dedicated area. So I switched to almost exactly the same model you have, Ash. So I have a P3, a Battle Foam P3 bag that has all the paints in it, right? And I just pull that out, and I literally have a piece of very thick cardboard I pull out. That's my work table. I flop it on top of my desk. That converts from like a work area to all of a sudden a painting area in like 3 easy steps, right? And then I'm painting, and then I literally put it all away. But setup and tear down is like under 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Yeah. So it's I'm not thinking like in my head, oh crap, I got to set it all up. The only exception to that is airbrushing, which I do like to do, but I only airbrush when I have for that I need a larger time window, like maybe an early Saturday morning. I'm up at 6 in the morning from 6 to like 10 for 4 hours working on a bunch of guys at once or a big piece or something.
Yeah, I just leave my airbrush set up at the studio because that way the kids can't get at it and it's just permanently set up.
Yeah.
And that's really all I do at the studio is I paint like big stuff I can't paint at home, like terrain and stuff that I want to like spray paint and airbrush. But I actually got like what we're talking about, like what you and I do. I actually got that from traveling.
Yep.
Because when you're in a hotel room 5 nights a week, like you're getting no painting done unless you have that like little portable setup tear down kit. And so what I would do was I would always have carry on. And you know how you get the 1 liter bag of liquids and gels? Yeah. It would just be like paints.
Right.
And I would get the weirdest looks at like airport security because I would literally just have a bag of paints.
Yep. Well, that's exactly how I
And then like my contact lens solution would be there.
No, you're right.
And I would just get everything else when I was
Travel's
there.
exactly, that was another tip I was going to say, because travel's exactly why I switched over to my exact thing, because now I can grab it. And on business trips, on business trips, I hate checking bags. But sometimes if I have a big enough project, I will check some paints. But normally what I'll do is I have a small size, I can get it just in my carry-on, and I can have the paints in like the 1 or 2 models I'm working on, And it's funny because I've been doing this so long now, I have like models that I remember the business trip I was on just because I painted that dude. Like that time I was at the sequel conference in Austin, Texas. That's when I painted Steve Morty and Guard. I just remember
my red Scorpion army is mostly painted in hotel rooms in Quebec.
Right.
It's really funny because it's a what was that movie called? Up in the Air, and he gives those seminars about like how to your life in a backpack, how to lighten your life, basically. Yeah. It's a weird like extension of that for me, like where I just trimmed down what I needed to like the bare essentials. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think that just come from being old too. Like I like for the people listening, like you as you get older, you stop kind of doing things for other people, and you get more centered and rounded, so you just do things for yourself. And it's funny because my analogy of like going to the gym is like almost exactly the same. Like I go to the gym now just to be healthy. I don't care what I look like anymore. Like I'm married. I'm just trying to. What's that Louis C.K. line? Like you have no idea how much work it takes just to like maintain this.
Well, you see, as you get to where we are, kind of like in midlife, it's exactly right. You go from being like trying to, when you're younger, you're trying to be the best for everyone you can be, and you're worried about everyone else. And this is going to sound very self-centered, but it's just the arc, right? And then you get to midlife, you're like, well, I'm really focused on my family and taking care of them, so I need some me time, because like literally every moment when you're not in the me time, you're worried about someone else in your family, right? Yeah, and then you can see how when people get older, you become that grumpy old man, because eventually you're like, I don't care what anybody thinks of me. I'm just going to sit here and eat and fart right in the middle of this restaurant. I don't care.
Yep. You turn to my dad, sweatpants at work, sweatpants all the time.
Right. You see how it goes.
You can't wear sweatpants to a funeral, Dad. I'm sorry. Like, you're just not sweatpants and Crocs to a funeral that's still too far.
Right. So, Craig, how do you do it? Because you have a more dedicated configuration, right? Are you pretty portable now too?
Me, I've been portable for years because my wife won't let me.
Right.
Which I wouldn't want to. I paint like Ash said. I paint in the living room.
Yeah.
I've got all my now. We're entering into a new and interesting era where I have all my stuff hidden in this beautiful sideboard, this antique sideboard that we got from my grandmother because she didn't want it anymore. It's marble topped. It looks great. And I have half of the drawers and cabinet space is all different models and miniatures and paints and everything like that. For some reason, all of a sudden that bothers my wife, knowing that's in there, even though she can't see it. I know I'm getting kicked out of that soon.
You walk into that room and you open the armoire and it's full of like whips and chains and ball gags. that's what it is to her. It's like, no one can see this.
Exactly. It's horrific. And so. Yeah, so I know that I'm getting moved out of that into even further away from where I like to paint, like the living room where the TV is. I don't watch Law and Order, but I do the same thing where that's like I've got some TV going on in the background that I don't really have to focus on, and I like to paint. But I try to keep it all. So I've got one of those giant old wooden GW paint trays. Mm-hmm. And I have that sort of set up as a project space for when I'm doing a project. For instance, when we just did Blood and Plunder, I have over 100 pirates, so I did them in lots of 50, but I have all 50 of those models kind of all laid out by unit and everything, so I can kind of paint one unit at a time, and I'll do batches of, so I'm going to go through, and it's a pain in the butt because they're all going to be different colors, and there's not going to be any uniforms for most of the units. So I'm going to do all the white. Okay, everybody's going to have white shirts, so that makes sense. And then all the tan, and then, so I'm now going to do black. That's going to be this guy's pants and this guy's shirt. And then, so I'll do like a pass of all one color and all another color. My problem, and I constantly discover this and then forget it, is I have a really hard time putting it away unless I at least come up to a break point that makes sense to me. So, like, if I'm halfway done the red paint, I can't all of a sudden just go, you know what? I'm just going to stop now. And I have to, because I learned that's like the path to marital happiness is being able to put it away when I'm supposed to put it away instead of staying
compromise.
Right.
Exactly. You got to be able to, and my wife is much more, relaxed about it if she knows that I can put it away relatively easily. But when she sees me kind of in the zone and knows I'm going to be there till 2 a.m., things can go, sort of crooked on me all of a sudden. So I have to constantly focus on that. But I don't really enjoy anymore doing armies. I like doing small groups. I love working on the Marvel minis because, I'm just working on like maybe 6 models at a time, and they're all different. So they're all going to I'm not doing a uniform or anything like that. Or the Star Wars minis for Imperial Assault that I've been using for Rogue Stars. I really enjoy that. I feel like I get a lot more out of that in a much quicker or a shorter time period, because it's kind of like I'm getting the payback much quicker than if I'm doing like 50 models at a time, I guess. 50 models feels like work.
Yeah, it's funny because I think that's actually something that's coming back right now. It's almost like a backlash, like a counterculture thing in miniature wargaming, where like the kitchen table game is becoming popular again because our generation, where we have that limited amount. Like, so what happens is, like, as you get older, right, your amount of free time goes down and your amount of disposable income goes up. So it all inverts, right? When you're a kid, you have no disposable income, you have tons of free time, right? And now you've got the exact opposite of that. But you want to get to what you just said, which is that like level of satisfaction as quick as you possibly can,
right?
And so if you can paint 3 models and feel like you've played a complete game, that's that's becoming really popular, I think, with people with money. And you're seeing these games get sort of like this renaissance. And even board games, like I have a theory that's why the Euro board games in like the mid 2000s really took off again, like Settlers and Carcassonne and stuff like that, because you could just put them out and tear them up so fast. You know what I mean? Like you could play a board game, and it wasn't like trying to get through Twilight Imperium, which is a game I will never play.
We have an ongoing joke about that. We'll let you know.
Russ has played it once.
The battle tech of board games.
Yes.
I'm just like, I can't do this.
No, they're long. But I agree with you. I think there is something. And I also think that's the reason the hybrid board games with miniatures in them are starting to have a renaissance. Because
like Zombicide,
yeah, miniature gamers like us, there's a simple rule set that doesn't take a lot of table space, has all its own built-in terrain, but I can still have the joy of painting up some cool models. And, 50 models, which is enough for more than one player to play, as opposed to, 50 models is one army. You got to find a friend who will paint another army, and then you both need to work on terrain for a table. So those kind of board games really, I think, appeal now to us.
Yeah, and you have a complete experience too.
Right.
Like you get to paint models, but you don't paint so many models that you get to the point where you hate it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then you get to play a game, but it doesn't take you so long to get to playing the game. That you resent what took, you know what I mean? Like it's almost like you get to cycle through and be excited to paint your next miniature faster, and that makes you want to go and get that next Marvel miniature, that DC miniature, or whatever.
That's why I think the sports games are coming back too. Like the Guild Ball Kickoff Box was brilliant because it's essentially a board game. Miniature gamers can paint it. You got two teams, 12 models. Boom, you got a great game.
I just got a copy of Rumble Slam, and it looks awesome.
Oh, cool! Check that out.
And the component quality is amazing. Rumble Slam's the pro wrestling sports game.
Yeah.
It looks amazing.
Very cool. So I have something that's worked out for me, and I don't think either of you guys are quite here yet in the whole life arc situation. So so when I was painting with my dedicated painting area, my daughter at the time, who was like 5 or 6, would come down and she'd say, Daddy, what are you doing? I'm painting my models. And it kind of goes back to what you were mentioning, Ash. At that time, for me, painting was that sort of me time. And I would do it either early in the morning when everybody's still asleep or late at night when everybody's passed out, right? But she'd sometimes be up early because, 5-year-old. And she'd come down and ask what I'm doing. And she said, well, can I paint with you? I said, well, when you get a little older, I let her paint a couple things, some models from like Super Dungeon Explorer and stuff when they're really young. And she said, well, when can I play a miniature game with you? I said, when you're 10. That was my rule, when you're 10. So when she got to be 10, she kept saying, Dad, I'm almost 10. And so I bought her into War Machine when she was 10. And ever since then, she's been playing Circle of Ouroboros for War Machine. And I've been keeping her focused. We're on one army each, one game each. Just keeping, and she's been very good about I'm not playing unless it's painted. She's following your rules, Ash. She's not out there with unpainted models on a bad table. We have good terrain, a little thing for it. But what's been awesome about it is now I can have painting time on the weekend with my daughter, which is now quality time with my daughter. So now I can actually paint on a Sunday afternoon with her, and we watch shows together and stuff. And now that she's 14, we're watching shows like Vikings, so it's kind of awesome.
Right.
So we're watching people getting beheaded. We're painting orcs and and elves, and it's just awesome. It's like so it's really become a very neat experience. And as a parent, if you can pass the hobby on to your kid, it really becomes a way that you can actually. It's a whole new way to see the hobby because you're seeing it through their eyes for the first time, and it's been really a very rewarding experience. So I would really, that's one, I don't regret that at all. I still do like my own mate time. So what's interesting is I don't paint my War Machine and Trolls much anymore unless she's with me. So now what I do is, though, other games that attract me, like Craig's like, let's go get into Conflict 47, or let's go get into,
I think that was all you.
Whatever else. Well, no. But I'm in it because that's me time still, But War Machine Hordes now is kind of like quality daddy-daughter time, which is sort of an interesting. I didn't really ever see that coming, but it was sort of been a very rewarding sort of way to go with the hobby. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah. So that's something to look forward to.
I would definitely look forward to. Now, one word of warning, though, my youngest daughter, even though I tried the exact same pattern, she is not of a temperament where she likes to paint. So she's a board gamer, she's a video gamer, she's all in that stuff, but doesn't like to paint. So what's ended up happening is that quality time is, the one unknown time I have with my oldest daughter, and I have to do something else with my youngest daughter for quality time with her. So I've had to so you may not get lucky. It's, your mileage may vary because not every kid is the same interests, but if you do get lucky, it's a nice way to spend your time on a lazy.
Yeah, I think it's something I'm just gonna. If it happens, it happens.
Yeah.
I think one of the lessons I learned from my parents was when I became a parent, I realized, because you look back at like how you were raised, I realized that all the things I didn't end up enjoying were things they like tried to influence me to do.
Right.
You know what I mean? Whereas like the things that they just kind of said like, well, you seem to like it, so you should keep at it, were all the things that I grew to like really love. And so like with my kids, I think it's more, encourage them in the things they're interested in. So like if they become interested in it, I'll totally encourage them, but I'm not going to like be like, you try painting miniatures.
Yeah, you can't force it.
You know, like it's whatever. Cause I'm a real strong believer in like that. If you just follow what you like, you just kind of like stumble through life successfully.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like,
yeah, you got to follow your passion. I agree.
If you don't enjoy something, then like just stop. Like you're not even going to be good at it, and you're going to hate it, and you're not going to be successful. Like and I think that was something I lucked out early on in sort of realizing was like I wasn't going to let people define what successful was for me. I was going to define it for myself, and that's like a very big, especially today, I think for young kids, it's like that's an act of will. You know what I mean? Because you're constantly being told what right is and what wrong is,
right.
And what cool is and what not cool is. And like, I think my hope is that by kind of parenting my kids that way, I can nurture that in them. You know what I mean? Like I'm not gonna try and tell you what's cool. Like you figure that out for yourselves, and that's gonna make you happy. You know?
I think that's exactly right. And I think that's why. You know, when my youngest was like, this isn't my scene, I'm like, okay, that's cool. Well, you know, let's find out. You teach me something. And she would pick something she likes to do. And I'm doing things with her. I know more about My Little Pony than I would have ever known. Let's just throw that out there. So, you know, since we all mentioned that we kind of like paint for ourselves now and we don't really paint to impress anymore, but we want to paint to get sort of, you know, table quality miniatures at the door. What are some classic shortcuts, I guess, in air quotes, right? Or tips and tricks you have now that you kind of old standbys that help you get those models done a little faster, but still like how they look?
There's obviously this pre-shading. So like a black base coat with like a zenithal white dusting of primer, lets you get like a dark to light pop on your models real fast, but you can still base coat in like lighter tones. Mm-hmm. And then I do a lot of like, paint everything your first highlight color, and then darken it down with a wash, and then highlight it back up. So like instead of doing like actual like tones dark to light, I'll usually do like a mid tone as my base coat, and then use like a shade or a wash or an ink or a glaze or something like that to wash it down, because it's just so much faster. Like it's so much faster to shade recesses than it is to try and go from like bottom up with a dark color to a light color. And that's just like, because then you can do like 2 to 3 highlights as opposed to like 7 or 8 highlights, basically, when you're trying to work something from black or work something from like a really, really dark tone.
Very cool. Craig, what about you? Any tips and tricks you do?
Well, I've always done my standby that we've talked about a lot, where I prime in black and I dry brush up to like a bone color. But I will say that I stumbled online on this prime it with the black and then do the dusting of the white, and I actually bought all the primers to try that with my next project.
Oh, so he's going to try that. So I think
right? I am going to try that with my Rune Wars minis. Actually, I just got my writer's copy of Rune Wars, so I have 2. So together we have 3 boxes.
Excellent.
To be able to get a big game in it.
I'm ready. I'll start priming mine.
Yeah,
excellent.
So I'm going to try that because the official painter for the Rune Wars minis that has a lot of tutorials online, that's what he does also, where he paints it with the black and then he actually does a dusting of the white. He uses an airbrush, but he also shows how to do it with the cans, so I'm going to give that a shot.
It doesn't, being specific, you can use an airbrush, but the difference is so minor. Like you can just use a rattle can usually.
Cool. And that's what I'm going to do.
Nice. So last question, what's your most indispensable tool? Is it a specific kind of brush? Is there a particular thing you always use? What is the one thing you like if you're packing to paint while you're on a trip, Ash? What by gosh is always in your paint box?
GW made a brush called a wash brush a while ago, and it's just this it's like a fat-ended like holds a lot of paintbrush, but it's also a really great rounded tip dry brush. And I usually bring that with me as like my big brush, and then I just bring a fine detail brush as my small brush, and then a medium brush for base coating. But I love that wash brush because it's such a great soft dry brush. It's not flat edged like the dry brushes that you typically buy. It's rounded instead, and it's kind of like my jam for dry brushing anything, because you can get it into recesses better. And it tends to just it holds paint really nicely on its end. That would be my, if you don't use it for washes, it's not great for washes. Really, it's really good for dry brushing.
Yeah, GW never got the naming conventions right, but otherwise,
no.
Craig, what about you? What's your key tool?
Well, I love I take a set of the standard Games and Gears brushes because I love the way that the heft of the metal, but the fact that it stores in such a small box, especially when I'm traveling. But my go-to brush that I always bring with me is a relic, and you can't get them anymore, but it is a GW tank brush.
Oh yes, the tank brush.
The GW tank brush, especially with that technique that I use where I dry brush everything up from black so that I have some shading.
What color already. Is it? The blue one or the red one?
It's funny you should ask. I have one of each.
I have a stash.
I have a stash.
No, exactly.
I have like 5.
When they got rid of them, I probably have 5 or 6.
I think I bought a case at one point. Yes.
Yeah. I'm down to my last blue one.
I still have a stash of a bunch of the old GW inks when they brought in the shades because before there was like Devil and Mud, there was brown ink. And you brown inked everything. And I still have probably like 12 pots of brown ink and 12 pots of Ceradon granite, which is the color they didn't bring in the new paints.
Yeah. That's probably your retirement plan.
I know.
Those.
Nobody touches them. They'll be gone. I'm working my way through that Ceradon granite. Every time I do anything stone, that's like my color right there. It's a great color.
Right. That is awesome. What about you, Russ?
Mine is there's a DuPont Super Gel Super Glue, right? Uh-huh. So it's like this very, very thick, viscous super glue that I love. And if I don't have it, if I didn't bring it with me and I have to borrow someone else's super glue, I'm super frustrated, pardon the pun, because it just runs around too much. So I've been working a lot. It just seems like I've been doing a lot of metals lately. So, I mean, polystyrene cement is the way to go. If you're working with real plastics, which seem to be rarer and rarer. Everything's like freaking some kind of flavor of resin now. But right. if you're working with real plastic, polystyrene cement, the way to go because you can pose the models exactly the way you want. But for me, what I've found now is because I've been so comfortable with painting, assembly is my least favorite part.
Oh, I hate it so.
Assembly takes freaking forever, especially with metals. They're always falling apart. I'm gluing my fingers to myself. Maybe it's because I'm getting to the age now where I don't have the dexterity I used to have, and I'm messing things
Really,
up.
I love metal models. I'd rather build metal models than plastic models. Well, because the new plastic models, you have so many options, and I'm just like, I just don't care.
No,
just tell me how they're supposed to look.
No, I'm with you on that. Well, I like the plastic models that are one-way assembly, you see, because they're like that. Yeah. But the metal models, the problem is like you're doing a weird model or something like that, where like weird miniatures where they're so fiddly. You know, or some of those Infinity guys, you could be there 20 minutes trying to get the glue, the little antenna.
The weird models are all plastic now. There's no metal models.
Yeah, now they are all metal. But like that kind of thing gets me into trouble. So I like to have a really good glue. So that's my thing. Because getting assembly done fast, then I feel like I'm 90% of the way done, which I know seems weird because for a lot of people, painting's the hard part. But for me, it's getting the darn things built. That's my thing. So Ash, thank you so much for joining us here in Dunkin Donuts. We won't hold your favoritism towards Tim Hortons against you. You seem to be...
I just told you I was benevolent.
Well, you're benevolent, except you
where's this false patriotism?
You besmirched this fine employee here.
You've been pigeonholed, Ash, and it doesn't matter what you say.
9 out of 10 Canadians agree.
Maybe you're
the 10th Canadian.
Yeah, okay, care.
So, Ash, thank you so much. We're looking forward to talking to you in about a week on the main show. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll talk with you more a little bit.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for purchasing a D6G Lost Chapter. Supporting the show helps it grow.